Ready? Hello, everybody. I'd like to call the order of the April 16th, 2025 Planning and Economic Development meeting. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Can I have a first and a second?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Next item on the agenda is the privilege of the floor. Do we have anybody here who would like to speak on the privilege of the floor?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, as I indicated to you before the meeting, tonight I'd like to use privilege of the floor to point out that in the county executive's State of the County message, a major statement on his part was opening the door to micronuclear or small modular nuclear power generation being invited into Chautauqua County, potentially, for all kinds of reasons. I would request that the chairman ask our planning department to provide us with a basic report at our May or June meeting on what the current state of knowledge is and development of these projects. I just Googled and found a really good story on NBC News, and I think the other was in CNN. Google, whatever company that is investing in one of these small modular nuclear development companies, and two other major companies are investing in these things, and they appear to range anywhere from as little as 25 megawatts to 350 megawatts. And to put that in perspective for those of us that have never dealt with megawatts, the Dunkirk coal-fired plant was roughly a 550 megawatt plant. So the nuclear potential that the executive was talking about, whatever it would be much smaller than the coal-fired generation was at Dunkirk. But if we could get just kind of a review of the literature on these, where they stand, the different companies that are working on them, when they might even have a demonstration project and so forth, before I would be willing to consider voting in this body to in some way inform New York, inform these companies specifically, inform the Federal Energy Nuclear Regulatory Commission that Chautauqua County was willing to at least explore one of these small nuclear plants. I'd want to have a good working document to back up for my constituents why I was open to that idea. So that would be a good project, I think, for our planning department.
Okay, I certainly introduce that to them.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, does anyone else have anything to say on the privilege? Hearing none, we'll get into the balance of the agenda. The first resolution is to confirm appointment of the County of Chautauqua Industrial Development Agency Board of Directors. Do we have anyone to speak on that? And if you could please introduce yourself when you get seated.
I'm Mark Geis. I'm the Deputy County Executive for Economic Development and the CEO of the IDA. Yes, this request is for the legislature to approve the appointment of Ted Whitman, who is a Sinclairville resident. He's a business representative for the North Atlantic States Regional Council of Carpenters, the union. This vacancy is a result of Steve Thorpe retiring. Steve Thorpe was a sheet metal workers union rep. He retired the end of last year, and so we've been looking for another union person to fill his position. But you know, he's got over 2 decades of experience in the industrial sector. He's got a lot of experience also in the power generation and manufacturing sectors. He has a deep understanding of the specialized needs and challenges within these fields. Gary Henry, the board chair, myself had lunch with him He was very knowledgeable,
Right.
tuned into what's going on, nice guy, so, and I know he's been active in the community and other stuff, so I feel really good about him.
It sounds like he's going to be a great addition to the IDA,
Yeah.
so, the Board of IDA. Does anyone have anything to say or to add to this
Mr.
appointment?
Chairman, if I might,
Yes.
I'd like to commend the Executive Director of the IDA for continuing the long-standing tradition of having a union representative on the board of the IDA. So I thank you, Mark, for continuing that tradition.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that, so. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Appointment. Those against? Carried. Mark,
Thank you all.
for that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Second resolution for this evening is the appointment to the Chautauqua County Agriculture and Farmland Protection Board.
Hi, I'm Lauren Sharp. I'm a junior planner with the Department of Planning and Development. So we have two appointments for the Ag and Farmland Protection Board. The first is for Richard Ushwak. He is filling the role of active farmer. He's a grape grower in Pomfret. He's also a co-owner of Agri America. And then our second appointment is for Caitlin Wally Stoll. She is filling the place of Emily Reynolds. Cornell Cooperative Extension has a seat on the Ag Board, and Emily filled the role during some staff changeover, retiring and hiring, and now they have somebody in the position that they would like to serve on that board, and that's Caitlin.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah, I was just going to ask the board, does any board members have any questions on appointments? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Lauren, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Third resolution for this evening is authorizing submission of application for the 2025 Community Development Block Grant funding through the New York State Office of Community Renewal. If you folks could please introduce yourself, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi, Stephanie Nick, Chautauqua County Department of Planning and Development, Special Projects Coordinator.
Rosie Stramberg, Project Manager for the County of Chautauqua Industrial Development Agency.
Okay.
So at last month's PED meeting, we discussed this project. It was to call for the public hearing, which will be held next week at the legislature's meeting. Tonight is just to approve the submission of the OCR application. At the legislative meeting where we will have the public hearing, there'll be details on the project cost and the FTE numbers for the project. I do also want to note that the House on the Hill did decide on the operator and the actual name for the project, which will be Tulip Brunch House.
Two brunch houses.
Yep.
Okay, thank you for that.
And again, with most of our CDBG projects, there is no county funding that is used for this project.
Right. Okay. Do we have any questions, comments on the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
It's carried.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, appreciate that. Next item on the agenda is approves New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQRA, findings for the North Chautauqua Lake Sewer District wastewater treatment plant expansion project.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dave McCoy, Chautauqua County Watershed Coordinator,
Great.
and you need no introduction.
I'll do it again every time I'm up here. Mark Geis.
Okay. Then what do you do, Mark?
I'm the
Exactly?
CEO of the IDA.
Okay,
and
we're
the
good then.
Deputy
We're-
County Executive for Economic Development.
We're fine, thank you for that.
So,
All right, go ahead.
Well, last month we came before you to ask to do the environmental review for the proposed wastewater treatment plant upgrades for the North District. We have done that. The action has been determined to be a medium-sized action in terms of seekers, not a full-blown type 1.
Okay.
Mostly because of the size. It's relatively small footprint. The environmental assessment form was prepared by a licensed professional engineer, reviewed by our council, if you will. and it's determined to be of no significant environmental impact.
Good.
And accordingly, we ask for a negative declaration.
Okay. Great, pretty straightforward. Do we have any comments or questions for the committee on this? Mr. Shagan, anything? No? Good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. It's carried, thank you.
Thank you.
Fifth item is to amend the 2025 budget to implement waterway hazard removal using interest earnings from the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, and 3% of the occupancy tax reserve.
So-
Nate Aldrich, Economic Development Coordinator.
Thank you. You're good, Mark.
Okay.
All right.
So, you may recall that back in 2023 and 2024, the Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy was approved by funding from the legislature to use $105,000 of ARPA money and $100,000 of 3% reserve money
Yep.
to clean up the 35 and a half miles of the Marden E. Cobb Waterway Trail, which has been littered with logs and beaver dams, et cetera, for many, many years, unnavigable. And so they set to work. They did about half of it.
Okay.
They got half of it done, and they did a great job. I think Twan even came here and talked to you guys about
Yes.
Yeah,
the
Twan
work they
did.
did, right?
Yes.
And so there's about 17 miles more to go, and they're out of money. They didn't really know what it would take. I mean, some of these logs are this big around, right? So they approached, I know Pierre and, you know, the DPF and others about getting more funding to get that job done. They've got the crew. So what they need is about $150,000 to complete that project. So there was $87,000 left remaining in the ARPA interest earnings account. We took it through the ARPA committee and they recommended for approval for the funding, that 87. And then the remaining 63, we're looking at using the part of the, 3% occupancy tax reserve. What's the balance on that, 350,000 or something? It's a pretty big number.
Yeah.
So between the 87 of ARPA and the 63 of 3% reserve, that would be the 150 that they need. And the DPF would oversee that project on behalf of the county.
What kind of time frame would be, or
This
are you
summer.
looking to have it be done?
Yeah.
Is it 1 month, 2 month, half a year type project? Oh,
This
No
summer,
This summer.
I think a few
It'd be
months.
during the season.
Yeah,
Okay.
CWC is confident they can complete it this year.
Yep.
It is difficult to access these areas, and they're
Okay.
expensive due to the equipment that's required.
That's probably why the extra money is gonna be required.
Yep.
is
yeah, it's
Just
off.
location access.
Yeah, it's hard to get to. It's kind of like a big, I canoed it once. It's like a big old ditch. It took me all day. It's like a big ditch that you can't get to, and it's all farm fields, and, I mean, it's really,
All right.
it's hard work.
Okay.
And of course, I wanted to say one other thing. I think it's really important to our tourism industry too. I mean, at one point, those were all, family-friendly waterways, and people came and kayaked on them and et cetera. And
Nice.
you can't do that anymore. It's very dangerous and not fun, believe me.
So once upon completion, they'll be able to kayak, and you can't take a full boat down that, can you? Or is it just, like a motorized boat, or is it just limited to like kayak canoe type of?
I think mostly kayaking, but I think further down you could actually take a small boat,
Okay.
with a little small fishing
All right,
boat.
I
But
was
it's-
I'm
it
just
depends on the
curious.
time of the year.
Sure.
Because sometimes it's very shallow, sometimes it's raging, so.
Okay.
But,
All right.
The only thing I'd add, Mark, with deferred maintenance and the, Emerald Ash Borer, the problem right now is significant, but we're working with CWC and DPF Parks to come up with a plan, obviously, to maintain things going forward.
Sure.
And not only maintaining the waterway itself, but looking to do further work to, the Parks Commission and DPF Parks, who we're working on with this. they're seeking to do some more things like kayak launches, parking lot improvements, wayfinding signage and stuff like that, so.
So there's a game plan in the future then for
Yep.
things to be done. That's fantastic. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, I do, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, John.
I assume this is all being done with local contractors, and there is a project timeline, there's a project manager, CWC, and their direction, working with Tim in public facilities?
Yes.
Is that what you said? Okay. Is there any way we could see before and after pictures, just to see?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm sure they do that, it's just if we could just see some.
I think it'd be great to have Twan come back and present to you guys again all the work they did, starting from the beginning to the end,
Yeah,
and showing
I
the
would
final
personally like to
product.
see that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll suggest.
You know, I mean, if you look, it's, there's 17 miles left, 150,000, that's $8,000 a mile.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
Yeah.
a lot of money, and, you know.
huge
So-
job.
I'd like to see the progress. I think that's a good point, John. Thank you for that.
Yep.
So,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
first is substantive matter. As a county legislator, I had no idea until the presentation that night in front of our committee that the Martin Cobb waterway was inaccessible, much of it. And I agree with the comment that was made that trying to use it in some recent years is dangerous. And as a lawyer, I didn't like hearing that we had a dangerous county waterway that's on maps that we produce and so forth. The idea that somebody from Cleveland or Pittsburgh would inadvertently get jammed up in a huge snag was not good. So I'm glad that this money is being put together to make the Martin Cobb waterway a waterway again instead of a dangerous entrapment. Whether Nate can help me, this legislator, with this or not, I don't know. There's nobody here from finance. I make a confession.
Sam's right there. Sam's here.
Hi. Focused on this side of the room. You can help me, so they're off the hook. As a legislator all these years, on and off, I understand the narrative. It's a $150,000 project, and we're going to use $63,000 of the reserve for occupancy tax, $87,000 of interest on Joe Biden's ARPA money, $26 million. So 63 plus 87 is a $150,000 project. Beautiful. Now the resolve, though, is we amend the 2025 adopted budget. Increase appropriation contractual 150. Well, that sounds good. It's a $150,000 project, but also increase appropriation account interfund transfers transferred to capital 150. Total 300,000. Well, that's confusing to me. Maybe the other 18 know exactly how this works. Increase revenue account interfund transfers, interfund transfer 150 grand. Transfer to capital interest and earnings regular, $87,000, total 237. So help me understand for the first time in my life as a legislator, how 150,000 using 87 from one source, 63 from another, and the 63 doesn't show up as 63. Apparently it shows up as a differential.
It's up at the top, it's the whereas, taking it from the occupancy tax at 63, that's why it's not at the bottom, because it's up in the first.
Yeah, but when we amend the budget, help me understand why it's just not increase contractual 150 grand, and then show where the revenue is coming from. Because we wind up as legislators looking at total of 300,000, total of 237,000, and it's very hard to understand, at least for me.
Oh, yeah, so like the one, obviously, the 87 you see is coming right from the ARPA interest earnings, that's the part that's flowing through that interfund transfer.
Okay.
The other part you're not seeing is coming from fund balance, and that doesn't go through that transfer, that's why it's left off of that, that's why it looks unbalanced in the way it does.
Yeah.
And that first whereas and resolve has it coming additional out of the fund, so that's That's the reason it looks that way. Honestly, when I first saw them, it didn't make a lot of sense either. She expected to be balanced all across, but the first result covers the 63, and then the 87 is the actual transfer that's coming from now for interest earnings, not fund balance itself.
Okay, I still don't understand, but that's all right. I don't understand why we don't increase appropriation 150 grand and increase revenue 87 from one source and 63 from another.
That is just a transfer of how we're moving the money through the interfund. So it is the 150 contractual, the other 150 is how we're getting it there. That's the mechanism of how we're moving the money, but it's not actually increasing the appropriation to 300. That's just basically the transfer account, to move it there.
Yes,
And
that's
that's
basically a part that is hard for me to follow.
But that is the transfer piece. So that's not increasing the budget. That's kind of where the revenue piece will flow up and then increase it to the 150,000. I'm probably doing a very bad job of explaining that.
Well, it apparently is, maybe all of you, maybe the other three fully understand how this works, how to read all these. I don't.
Yeah,
And,
I'm good.
Well, you're.
I mean, it's an intercompany transfer
Yeah,
of the
basically,
cash. You're
yeah,
putting the
the
money
87
in
is
place
cash
so
and
that you can spend the cash later. Right.
Okay, well, that makes sense. All right,
But
thank you.
You gotta move it from wherever it
Yeah,
is
basically
to
the
get
piece
it.
Is how we, is the flow
Right.
through how we're moving the money.
Right.
essentially. That's not increasing the appropriation.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're not putting it in their own account. They're putting it
That's
so
the
that
thing.
it can be spent to manage this. So this is just the intercompany transfer of the cash. It's
Actually, a very
here,
good ex-
they're moving
It's
it
a better
here.
explanation than I gave, actually.
Well,
Okay.
thank you for
I
that.
just left.
The bottom line is,
I just left that.
the
It's
bottom
free.
line is, I think it's a terrific use of $150,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hope it gets the job done
Yeah.
this summer.
So that being said, are we, do we have any other comments?
Well, I just wanted to comment, ironically, I am also very happy to hear that you're making these improvements so people can kayak. I was just in a meeting in Scranton this week about the Susquehanna River, and it has similar issues, and they're not dealing with it like you're dealing with it. So, someone that was at dinner with us on Monday night said, yeah, we can't kayak on the river because it's not safe. And so it's ironic that, you know, you guys are doing the right thing. And I told them so. Well, we're doing the right thing in Chautauqua County.
We got it all figured out here in Chautauqua.
Yes, I said, we figured it out. Maybe you want to call them.
I just want to just recognize CWC and DPF Parks. They're really driving the bus with our support, so.
Yes.
Great. Well, thanks for that. Thanks for the explanation, Sam. And
All set.
Comments and questions? Thank you, Fred.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I appreciate Nate complimenting or extending our appreciation to CWC and Twan Leanders for their leadership on this and their willingness to assist in this. But also, I feel it's important that we compliment Nate and Mark for grabbing a hold of this and running with this and finding the funding to make this happen. Because if we didn't get this done now, we probably would have missed another year, and it would have been even worse. So thank you to you two for grabbing a hold of this and running with it.
And recognizing that it does have a financial impact on our tourism.
No question.
Quality of life for our existing residents as well.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen, for that. So with that being said, all those in favor of the resolution?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you
Thank you,
so much,
everyone.
guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, number 6 on the agenda tonight is to accept state environmental quality review of proposed 2025 agricultural district inclusions.
Hi, I'm Lauren Sharp, Junior Planner with the Department of Planning and Development. So this resolution authorized the county executive to sign a negative declaration for seeker for the 2025 Ag District inclusions. We do use a modified short form for this. The county went into an agreement with the state Ag and Markets to utilize the short form specifically for ag districts. We're adding a series of 6 parcels to Ag Districts 7 and 1. So this resolution just authorizes the signature of that.
Okay. Pretty self-explanatory. Do we have any questions, committee?
I guess just, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
It's been a long time since, it's 20 years since I was county attorney and directly involved in ag district reviews. In a general sense, can you share with us how significant it is to a landowner to be in an ag district or to get excluded from an ag district at this stage of our history?
So if you're an agricultural producer and you're actively farming, it's recommended that you're in the ag district. There's certain protections from the state, review of local laws, nuisance lawsuits, things like that. If you are not in the ag district, those rules and regulations from Ag and Markets don't apply to you. If you are in the ag district but are not actively farming anymore, which is a large chunk of our land, the protections don't apply to you either. There's no penalty for staying in the ag district. In the case of the 6 parcels that are being added this year, those are people who are actively farming, or the potential for active farming is there, and they requested to be added. It's actually up to Ag and Markets to determine if they get those protections. Now, if something were to happen, and we always use the example of like a local law, if a town passes a local law that says no more commercial pesticide use, the farmer has to actively be involved in that process. So like when there's a public hearing for that local law, the farm has to go and state why this would not be good for their business before Ag and Markets would come in and help that farmer. Now, the current guidance that they have for review of local laws, the common one we see used is fencing. A lot of zoning says that a fence has to be like 25-foot setback from the property line. If you're an agricultural producer and that fence is for agricultural production, whether to keep livestock in or to keep things out, you can put it on the property line. And Ag and Markets, their attorneys have already given a statement, and that is what we share with the municipalities, their code enforcement officers, their town boards, as to why they can't enforce their local zoning as it's been deemed overly restrictive to agriculture.
Well, thank you. So most of it is for land actively used, whether dairy, grape, whatever. The state ag district law can protect the farmer, the agricultural business, from town, village rules and regulations that are deemed in conflict with what the state says active agricultural operations should be allowed to do. In terms of fencing, I would imagine a town could say that you can't have barbed wire anymore, and that it's got to be nice vinyl fencing or wood fencing that's kept painted and so forth. And it's important to the farmer that they not have every 8 feet costs $500 for a section of vinyl fence, that they can still have barbed wire to keep their animals in or keep things out. That's the gist of it.
Correct, yes.
Oh, thanks for that explanation. We vote on these things and sometimes we don't fully appreciate how much it matters to anybody, but this could matter a great deal to an active agricultural operation. Thank you.
That's a great question. Thanks for asking that. And thanks for the explanation, Lauren. That was.
Mr. Chair, one
Yes,
other
sir.
quick
Go ahead.
question. What is the, is there any property tax relief associated with these ag districts?
So, yes and no. When the ag district law rolled out in the 70s, it was attached to another piece of state legislation with the ag value assessment. Since then, the state has separated the two, so they're mutually exclusive. You can be enrolled in ag value assessment, which is something you fill out yearly with your assessor, and Soil and Water fills out your soil sheets, and you get a reduction on your property taxes based on the quality of your soil and the production capability of what is actively farmed. The ag district is just the, like, review of overly restrictive laws. They come together when you take your land out of production. If you are in the ag district, the payback period is a few years less. I believe it's 7 years that the municipality can request you to pay back. If you're not in the ag district, I believe it's 9 years they can ask you to pay back that reduction of taxes you received.
Thank you.
Another good question, John. Thank you for that. So, with that being said, does anyone have any more questions on the presented resolution? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you very much for that. Okay, number 7 on the agenda tonight is determination of Chautauqua County Legislature on proposed 2025 agricultural district inclusions.
So next week at the legislative meeting, there's a public hearing that's required for the inclusion requests. So we are required to mail notice to ag and markets, to the affected municipalities, as well as the landowners whose land is being added. At the public hearing, anybody with any comments can, state their comments. And then the legislature will hopefully pass this resolution to send all the required materials to ag and markets to add these 6 parcels to the ag district.
Okay. Pretty straightforward. Do you have any questions or comments on the committee? All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you very much. Last resolution tonight is to accept State Environmental Quality Review, or SEQR, God, I can't say that word, determinations for New York State Snowmobile Trail Grant and Aid Program for 2025-2026 snowmobile season.
So last month, we had a resolution that designated Chautauqua County as lead agency for seeker for the 2025-2026 snowmobile season. So we reviewed all of the snowmobile trail updates. The trails are required, or the snowmobile clubs are required to GPS their trails at least every 3 years or anytime there is a change. These 18 trails, some of them are currently state funded and some of them are not state funded, and the clubs are going to try to apply for state funding, which requires seeker. So some of them are in the case of they moved a trail just a little bit and it's now on a new property owner. Some of them were large reroutes due to maybe it was a wet area, maybe the property owner is a new property owner, didn't want the snowmobile trail there. The new trails are to establishments. Some of them have been long existing, the Ellington Rod and Gun, Contine's Overtime, that had a snowmobile trail when it was previously a different establishment. Then they discontinued the trail when the restaurant closed. Now somebody else is in there, they opened the trail back up. Probably the most, the biggest one that was changed was in the town of Gary. They redid the trail to make sure that the snowmobiles could get to the country fair in Gary without riding along Route 60 and riding along the sidewalk. It was a big issue for some of the landowners there. They didn't want snowmobiles on their sidewalk. It's actually illegal, and they cannot ride on the side of Route 60. So the Snowmobile Club did work with a couple landowners and get the trail to go to the back part of the country fair. But in making that change, it changed 3 other trails because of the way the trails interconnected in Gary. So this resolution will actually authorize the county executive to sign off on the 18 seekers for them to be submitted to the state Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation Department to be reviewed. The snowmobile trails that already have funding, their review and hopefully maintain their funding. The snowmobile trails that are applying for funding will be determined by the state if there is funding available.
Go ahead, John, please.
Mr. Chair, first and foremost, the work that you do is amazing. Second, it was one great snowmobiling season. Could you, just for the body, tell us the number of miles of trails in Chautauqua County, and what do you think the financial impact was with a great season like we had?
Great question,
Just a ballpark. Because that's what it comes down to for me is, we know what you do, you're in charge of all of this, you're one band person kind of doing all the snowmobile stuff with all the clubs and the DEC.
So we have just over 400 miles of groomed trail. There's probably more that's not state funded. There's obviously more that's not groomed too, like those private trails that you'll see. As far as economic to the county, the state did a study, it was over 10 years ago, and they haven't updated it since. If I had to guess, I don't even know where I'd guess. Go to a restaurant in Chautauqua County when the snowmobile trails are open.
It's unreal.
You can't park.
It's unreal, the number of new sleds sold, the clothing, the
Mhm.
oil, the fuel,
The fuel, yeah.
and the restaurants. It's.
That'd be a great impact to the
It's,
county.
it's overwhelming. Mark, would you have any idea, you know, is it 20 million a year, and just, it's just an interesting fact. It's
Yeah.
a, it's a,
guessing, but
it's a very important part of our fabric.
And a few of those people actually eat at those places.
Combination of both.
Yeah, exactly. Jeez. Thank you. Thanks for that.
So,
This is really significant. I
Yeah.
mean, this, you know, we had several rough years, really rough years, but, I mean, the people came out of the woodwork
oh yes,
for
they did.
this,
So,
just unbelievable.
It's a great area. It's a great area just to snowmobile.
You know, for me, I would just like to get a rough idea what that is, because I think, again, this is tourism in Chautauqua County. And it's a very, very important part, the millions of dollars that it generates within Chautauqua County.
That's a good question.
Yeah. Anyway, but thank you, Lauren.
Mr. Chairman, I have a
Yes, sir.
question. There are two snowmobile clubs listed here in a wide part of the county. Cherry Creek Snowgoers, Inc. and the Lake Effect Trail Breakers, Inc. How many other clubs get state funding to maintain trails
So-
besides these two?
In Chautauqua County, there are 6 clubs that operate in the county. 5 of them receive funding. So we have Cherry Creek Snowgoers. Cherry Creek Snowgoers work with the Sunset Drifters. The Sunset Drifters is the one club that we don't do funding for. They don't operate a groomer. They just do trail maintenance and get the agreements, and then Cherry Creek does the grooming of those actual trails, so all of their funding goes through Cherry Creek. Lake Effect, then we have Ellery Snow Cruisers, Chautauqua Lake Snowmobile Club, they handle everything Mayville and the other side of the lake, and then Southern Tier Snowdrifters has just a little bit, they operate primarily in Erie County, but they have a little bit that comes in near Hanover and Forestville.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. With that being said, does anybody on committee have any questions or concerns? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you, Lauren. Great explanation. So, brings us to the last item on the agenda, which is other. Do we have any other for the other? Hearing none, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.